Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this Parent Education Night. My name is Angie Salava. I'm the Director of Social Emotional Learning and Mental Health Services for the Olathe Public Schools, and I appreciate you joining us tonight. This session is being recorded and will be on our district's YouTube channel for viewing at a later time. So if you have a friend who would have liked to have participated tonight but was unable to, please direct them there after tomorrow and they will be able to view that. I'm joined tonight by some of our amazing Olathe Public School students, and I'm really excited for you to hear from them. They are going to have a conversation about some of the things going on in their world, and we are here to learn from them. I'm also joined by two coordinators in the Olathe School District. Dr. Scott Fluke is our PBIS coordinator, and Alicia Jackson is our College and Career Readiness and Counseling Services coordinator. And they're going to be helping me tonight to facilitate this session. I ask that if you have questions at any point in time, you go ahead and use the chat feature on the Zoom, and we will go ahead and monitor that and get your questions answered as time allows. So I'm going to have our teams go ahead and introduce themselves. Amaje, do you want to go ahead and start? Tell us about your name, where you go to school, and a little bit about some of the activities in which you participate.
Hi, my name's Imaje Harvey. I go to Olathe North and I'm a junior. At North, I participate in the Student Diversity Council, Race Project KC, and I'm also involved in Zero Reasons Why campaign through Johnson County.
Micah?
Hello, I'm Micah. I'm a senior at Olathe Northwest, and at Olathe Northwest, I'm involved in the chamber orchestra program and Sources of Strength Club. Outside of school, I do like Zero Reasons Why, and I volunteer for the Johnson County Youth Court.
Wonderful. Tariq?
My name's Tariq Soare. I'm a junior at Olathe West. I play basketball, and outside of school, I'm in the Student and Engagement Diversity Council, and I'm also in the Leaders of Olathe Council.
Great. And Amira?
Hi, my name is Amira Crutcher. I'm a student at Olathe East. I'm a senior there. I've previously been involved on the debate team, and I'm currently in the Civic Leadership Academy, and I'm also in the diversity panel for the district.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us and for helping us all learn from you tonight. So I'm going to start with, a real easy question. What are some of the stressors that teens face today? Who wants to start off with that one?
I can. I guess we like teens today. We're the generation of the implications of technology, whether it's cyberbullying, like unrealistic expectations, things like that. And it definitely stresses us out. And also with this year, families are juggling with a lot, and which may seem contradictory since the motto of 2020 was like chill out. But for me, like everything just automatically switching to online has been stressful, like managing everything and yeah, stuff like that.
I would say school is very stressful. Impressing others, sports, if you do sports, is very stressful. Um, yeah.
Just kind of going off of what Micah said, expectations is a really big thing. We have a lot of expectations we put on ourselves to be like better than, whether it's for social media, for school, or anything else. And that's a really big stressor in a lot of our lives.
Yeah, just to go off of what everybody else said, I also feel like a big expectation is applying to colleges now. That has been very stressful, figuring out what you're going to do after high school. Yeah.
Exactly. I definitely feel the same way since I'm a senior, and I did not understand fully the cost of college these days until this year when I saw when I got admitted to KU, I was looking at my financial aid package and I was like, oh, that's not that's a lot more than I was expecting.
Yeah, I think college, I'm only a junior, so I'm still thinking about it, but I'm not there yet. But I think there's a lot of stuff that we're not really taught about college yet. So there's a lot of unknown and it's creating a lot of stressors for us because we don't really know what to expect.
What do you think what are some of the stressors that you have now as a result of the pandemic that you didn't before?
I'd like to go first. So just being around family all the time and like especially being remote, like I have little siblings, so they'll be running around and stuff. And it's just always being at home is a struggle right now during this pandemic.
For me, it's a big lack of I don't know, like kind of what you're saying, I'm at home a lot, so it's just a lack of just kind of a release, freedom type thing. I feel like I don't really have a big social aspect with anything. So when I was in person with school, a lot of the times, you just get to laugh with your friends and just to have a fun time in the middle of classes or anything like that. But it's not that anymore. It's like you're at home, you might go to a job, and then it's just like you're still at home, and it just you kind of get like a little bit of like cabin fever. It just really kind of is hard.
Well, I feel fortunate enough to, have a bedroom with a desk, but I just want to speak for teens who might be uncomfortable like talking about it in front of other people. There might be teens who have dysfunctional families and um it can be really distracting and not help them focus in, a time where we have to stay home a lot and yeah, it can be distracting for them.
I feel like sometimes being involved with sports during this time, there's like a big burden on your shoulders. Like you can't go out see anybody. You gotta be smart about who you're with because if you get COVID, the whole team's got to shut down for like a week, 2 weeks. So that's definitely stressful for sure. Not being able to see people that care about you.
Yeah, that would be a big stressor. What are some of the ways that you're dealing with that, being home all the time and not being able to socialize because you're concerned about your team members and everything like that?
Um,
I feel like we don't take practice for granted. Like we enjoy being there. It's like not. It's more of a like we get to and not a have to mentality. And I feel like we just us as a team we've just come closer since like we're the only people like that's all I see is my teammates and stuff. So it's kind of nice to build that bond and that brotherhood.
Oh, okay. Just like jumping off of that, like in general, I feel like I really try a lot to stay in contact through my phone, like FaceTime, text a lot. It's like all we can do right now. And so I try to really stay in contact and stay in touch with everyone, like especially family members who live far away and stuff like that. It's very helpful right now.
For me, exercise is so hard to start doing, but once I like finish a workout, it's so relieving and it really helps me, but it's just so hard to start and get in the routine. But I know in the long run, if I keep doing it, it'll help with my stress, as well as getting 8 hours of sleep.
Sorry, I was struggling. Alicia?
Well, I was just going to put Micah on the spot and ask a follow-up question because I'm guessing there's moms and dads on here. And sometimes I think parents question themselves or don't know find that happy balance of when to push our young adults on a plan if they've come up with a workout plan or homework and when to back off. So Micah and anybody, what do you think, how can parents strike that happy balance of encouraging but not nagging, for lack of a better word?
I think that could be kind of a gray area. It kind of depends. I'd hate to say like give advice like that because ultimately parents, I think you know your kids the best, and if they respond well to you pushing them, it might be a good thing. And you know I'm sometimes, if I want my parents to push me, I might ask them to, and your teen or your child might ask you to too. So it can really depend on how what you know about your kid or something.
For those of you who mentioned being at home a lot, what is one way you deal with the stress when you are at home all the time? What have you found that helps with your cabin fever?
I would say FaceTime a lot and playing video games, a lot of video games. Getting outside. Well, when it was nice outside, getting outside, getting shots up, going for walks, walking my dogs, stuff like that.
For me, even though that sometimes my family can be like the stressor, just seeing them constantly, just doing something fun with them sometimes is a really nice thing. Just something that you don't normally do, just to kind of make it seem like you're not just doing the same thing every day. I really like to listen to music. Sometimes I draw, write. Those are just some nice things I like to do.
Amira, do you have any tips?
Basically they covered it. I was gonna say listening to music and walking dogs. That seems to be a common thing. It definitely relieves stress.
Yeah, good, good. How do teens today perceive mental health? I know, back when I was in high school a long time ago, mental health wasn't something that we talked a whole lot about. How is it today?
I personally would say it varies. I feel like a lot of my friends, they're not as open and it's like kind of brushed aside because from like a guy's perspective, I feel like growing up, a lot of guys were told like having emotions and stuff and talking about your feelings is like soft. And so I feel like a lot of guys are, it's tough for guys to open up and, about how they feel and what they feel and stuff like that.
I want to say that I feel like a lot of teens are just a lot more aware now. We're aware that these are issues that we might be having, and we're aware that these are what it might be, like what the problem might be, and why might need to talk to someone and things like that. We kind of perceive it. I feel like a majority, at least of the people that I'm friends with, really see it as something that needs to be talked about more. And we're trying to advocate for it more talking about it. Like, I know someone's talking now about mental health days being a reason to be excused from school and things like that. So it's being more advocated for. And I see teens taking it more seriously now.
It is definitely being talked about and being less of a taboo subject. I know I have some friends in college, and in fact, one of my friends, he's completely online, and his college just did like a mental health day. There were like no meetings today at all. We just want everyone to chill out for a second and begin the hard work starting later in the week.
Imaje and Micah, being on the Zero Reasons Why Teen Council, one of your pillars is to reduce the stigma toward mental health. Can you talk a little bit about that and what some of the activities surrounding that are?
Right now, well, since this is my first year on it, and because of COVID, a lot of our stuff has been mainly social media based and like Zoom based. So we try to reach out a lot through our social media accounts and just talk about our own experience a lot. Like anyone can submit their mental health stories and let that be known on our account. And so we try to do that a lot just to reduce the stigma of talking about it and talking about things that are wrong and things such as that. So we just really try to talk more about it so other people feel more comfortable to talk about it.
we talk to everybody. You know, we're a storytelling campaign. We connect students, parents, teens, educators. So plugging here, if any parents on here want to just DM the Instagram or Facebook account and ask. Um, we have actually the journalist, is Davis on here? Yeah, Davis is on here. He like he is now, yeah, he's right there. He's now the journalist, doing stories. So if you have some information to share, always feel free to hit him up. We do events like Mental Health Advocacy Day that's actually either coming up or just happened, and we try to break the stigma with our law system and people that are in the Kansas legislature.
Tariq and Amira, have you seen anything about Zero Reasons Why in your school prior to this year? I know this year has been kind of hit and miss. Or what do you hear at your schools about suicide prevention and some of the things surrounding that?
I'm not gonna lie, I haven't heard much about it, and I feel like this year during advisory and seminar, we haven't really gone over any lessons that are pertaining to anything besides like school events and whatnot. So personally, like we haven't talked much about suicide prevention or zero reasons, like nothing like that this year. Not gonna lie.
No, appreciate that. Amira?
Yeah, I agree with that. Specifically this year, we definitely haven't gone over that. I can vaguely remember advisory lessons like in the past about suicide prevention, but yeah.
Great. So, when you are concerned about a friend who might be struggling with a mental health issue, what do you do? I mean, sometimes you might be the only one that would notice. What would be something that you would do?
I would personally talk to them, try to understand, try to pick their brain and see what's going on, and then go do something with them, try to get their mind off things and help them open up to me and let them know that I'm here for them and that I got their back and whatnot.
I generally try to also talk to my friend just about it, and based on how long it's been going on, like if they've really been dealing with some hardcore issues, I'll try to refer them to looking for a therapist, the counselors in our schools, because I've had experience with them. They're great. Things like that. I really do try to get them to talk to their parents about it because they can do a lot more than I can. And just things like that.
Micah, anything to add?
No, I think Amaje was saying exactly what I was gonna say.
At what point would you get a friend's parent involved, or would you?
I probably wouldn't to begin with. I'd rather just talk to them about it instead of going to their parents for them. I'd probably advise them if I thought they needed to talk to their parents to do so, but I don't think I would do that against them unless I thought they were going to harm themselves or harm someone else. Then I think that's when you get someone else involved. But other than that, I feel like I would just try to have a heart to heart.
Anybody else have anything different? Okay. What are some of the things, we've got parents on this, what are some of the things that parents can do to help alleviate some of the stressors you discussed? The stressors of being at home and not being able to be social and everything like that you've already described.
I think that parents should not put as much pressure or too much pressure on kids, and they should try to look at it in our shoes. Like when they were younger, they didn't have to go through a global pandemic and whatnot and have to be at home all the time. So I feel like they just got to relax and try to see from our point of view. And yeah.
Tariq, I'm going to follow up a little bit. What does pressure look like? I mean, what kind of pressures can you be specific?
I would say being like pushy with schoolwork. Obviously, you got to get your schoolwork done, but not over the top um, with like stuff around the house. Obviously, keep the house clean and but just like bring it back just a little bit and whatnot.
Yeah, that kind of goes back to a question I was asked earlier about pushing kids to. I think it's more important to because if parents are just pushing kids and that's their only motivator to do work, it doesn't set them up for success. I feel like instilling self motivation is more beneficial in the long run for teenagers, especially in schoolwork. Um, Also, something that can help parents, it's like I wish this is what I would say to my parents. I would like them to like work to understand, work to find, like, read all the emails that you get from school and really understand what your kid is doing in school and maybe read the class syllabi that they're in, because I just hate getting a million questions when they can be answered through an email, and it sometimes is frustrating. So to alleviate some stress, um, and if you have like free time, work to understand what's going on without asking them what's going on.
So, follow up to that. Uh, what would be the best way for parents to attempt to communicate with you if they've read that, or if they're just trying to reach out and connect?
Uh, I kind of hate to say this, but I'm a texter. I don't like talking. I don't like sitting down and having a conversation, especially if it's just like one little thing and they call me downstairs to say something. I'd rather just get a text message and, never be confrontational or anything like that.
Okay. Amira or Amaje, do you have anything to add on that? What are some of the things that you think parents can do?
In my opinion, I think just like paying attention and checking in can go a long way, because especially in these times I feel like it's very, if you just pay attention to your kid, it's very little things that are changing that are obvious changes. Like, I don't know, just not feeling motivation to go out, not really wanting to do things. Sometimes it's just little things that are changing that you kind of realize, if you realize, you can kind of catch it before it gets any worse. And also just checking in, not really checking in with grades and stuff because it kind of adds an extra stressor. I mean, you can check in with grades, but like just not very often. But if you check in with mental health and just say like, how are you feeling? Not be overbearing about it, but just try to do that every once in a while to really listen to them and understand where they're coming from.
I would love that through a text message.
Yeah, I was just gonna say be understanding.
Now, I heard both from Amaje and Micah something about motivation. And you both talked about how it should come from within versus the external on. What's the best way of parents to foster that in you? What would make you want to do some of those things?
That's a loaded question. Because I mean, I don't really know. I mean, I guess maybe if anybody wants to Google it.
It's just hard to answer that because it's a self-based thing. I need to want it, and it's not very, there's not a lot that parents can do for that. And I can see where it gets hard in that area because you want to motivate us and you want to get us to want to do things, but it's something that we have to want ourselves. And it's really hard to get that type of motivation through someone else helping us.
I guess when you're training dogs, you kind of start by giving them treats. and then you slowly take away the treats so that they still do it even without getting the treats. You know what I mean?
Yes,
Yeah, I
yes.
like that.
Yeah, operant conditioning. Yes, very good. Okay, so we want our parents to text us and and just check in. Okay, very good. So, how can parents best address their teens' mental health? How how can they start a conversation on something that is that important?
I think they can start by addressing like irregular behaviors and whatnot. Like if I'm acting a certain way that I wouldn't act normally, I feel like that's a great indicator on to step in and just checking on how I'm doing and what's going on in my life and yeah.
And I was saying earlier about not being confrontational, like this is especially where parents shouldn't be confrontational or like get angry about noticing unusual behaviors. Like definitely before you go and talk to them, ask yourself, is yelling at them about this thing that they're doing really the best thing that I can do? What's the best thing that I can do to address what's going on with the situation is?
Yeah, to go off of that, I feel like once you have that talk with them and you kind of establish like what's going on, the next step would be to recommend them to therapists. And if you as a parent have specific therapists that you have in mind, you could send them the links and they could look and decide which one would work for them.
I think this is also a thing that don't be afraid to ask like questions that you think might be dumb because I like an example I want to give is like how to communicate about this kind of like Micah said that he'd rather do like text messages, but I'm very much I would like you to talk to me about this. I'd like to sit down and talk about it. And so it's like don't be afraid to be like, "Oh, how do you like to be talked to about this? How do you like to do this and how do you like to do this?" Because it doesn't mean like you don't know your kid or anything like that. Don't feel like that. Just feel like it's a learning curve and it's you being understanding. And that's a really big thing. And it means a lot and it goes a long way.
Maje, I'm so glad you said that because one thing I was also thinking about is I had a student one time when I was working as a school counselor at West who, um, when they were communicating with their parent, they were kind of in a tough spot. And so they shared um, just a journal and they would write in the journal to each other because they were both kind of in a tough spot with their relationship and they decided that that was a way that they could both communicate for that time being.
That made me think too, has your communication preference changed over time? Micah, have you always been, I want to text, or has that changed?
It's only with my parents that I'd rather just text. And my mom insists on calling me on the phone. And then I don't answer her, and then I just feel like, can you just text me even for one thing? So I think I've always been a texter.
What about some of the rest of you?
I feel like text is very it's a very great option and yeah, I agree with Micah for sure.
I've always been a face to face person. Like what I'm fine with you FaceTiming me, but I don't really like calls and I like being in person. But I understand what he means about like one single thing. Like you don't need a call for like
Like
a singular
my
thing.
mom's literally calling me right now, and I have to tell her that I'm in a meeting. uh,
Amira?
I'm definitely a texter.
Amira, is that the same for everybody, or do you prefer communicating different ways with teachers or students? Obviously, you're not going to text your teachers as much, but how does that change?
For teachers, I like emails. For friends, mostly just Snapchatting. For my mom, she usually just texts me. But if she comes down to my room or if we're talking like face to face, that's not an issue. Like I'm okay with either one. Yeah.
What do you do when two people, whether it's you and a parent or you and a friend, have different preferred styles of communicating? How do you resolve that?
I feel like Micah should take the lead on this one. You're experiencing it right now.
Could you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah, I was curious if two people have different preferred styles of communication, whether that's you and a parent, you and a friend, how can you go about resolving that?
I think at the end of the day, face to face is the best one overall because uh j- having deep conversations through text is like bad for me. So like it's just like by text I mean like just like normal things, normal conversations and stuff. To resolve something like that, I guess they'd have a compromise. I don't know. I've never had that issue. Well, I do have that issue with my parents clearly, but I don't know. They just deal with it.
I've had a conversation with like all my family members and like my friends on like what you do text me for and what you call me for. I'm like, you don't call me over this small little matter. I'm like, there's no reason for you to have a conversation. I'm like, I'll get back to you about this. So I just have a conversation about it. And it's like usually a compromise. I'm like, you can call me about real conversations that'll last longer than a minute, but there's no reason to call me for things other than that.
I think you've all brought up a really good point, though. I think it is important to communicate about how you best communicate, especially with your family, because there can be different communication styles. And if one prefers one method, and especially as a parent, I want to make sure that I am communicating with my teen the best way I can. And so having those conversations, I think is an important point. I'm glad that you all mentioned that. So let's talk a little bit about technology. You both mentioned it a little bit. We're all obviously using a lot of technology these days. When or should parents limit technology access for their teens?
I think this might go back to instilling self motivation. Um, because I have friends whose parents restrict their devices. They find a way. They get a burner phone, something like that. They will rebel. I don't know if fully restricting devices is the best thing to do. I think what's more important is keeping the technology safe. Um, yeah.
And yeah, I also have friends whose parents restrict their technology use. And for them, it just created a lack of trust between them and their parents. They felt like their parents didn't trust them and they no longer felt like they should communicate. They could communicate with them about things because it just really, they didn't have that trust anymore. And for me, it's just, I don't know, that gave me a type of strength that I know how much social media I can use. I'm like, I know when I need to get off of it, when it's not helping me, and things like that. It made me be able to see my own limits and create my own limits. And that was just a better route for me.
Yeah, well, and if you think about it, like if you have an 18-year-old, 17-year-old kid, like high school about to graduate, they're about to have no restrictions on anything, and I don't know how that's gonna. I guess it depends on the person, but I don't know how that would affect someone going from having so many restrictions to not having any at all. It could do more harm than good.
So when is too much, and how can parents guide their students who, like you said, are going to be on their own in a few short months?
I feel like too much is just kind of a subjective term because you never really know what we're doing on our phones. For me, I'm staying in touch. I also like to read a lot on my phone. So it's like I'm not always on social media, but there's a like there's a connotation people think that I am always doing this and always doing that, but I'm like a lot of the times I'm learning, I'm reading. My phone's just a helpful tool a lot. And so I just feel like there's not really a too much, and that usually if there is a too much, then the kid knows and they decide to put down their phone.
Tariq, you're nodding. Do you have anything to add?
I would say, in my opinion, the only time like things should be like taken away is obviously if like grades are plummeting and like it's and like your if social media is like making you unhappy and like feel a certain way, I feel like then yes, parents should get involved and maybe limit a little bit of social media and games on your phone and all that. But unless like things are becoming a problem, like a major problem, then I think it's fine. I think we have all some will to put the phone down at a point.
When I was listening to your response, Tariq, I was thinking about like what if instead of restricting, they find opportunities. So like saying, "Hey, I notice you're sad." Instead of restricting the phone, they might say, "Why don't you play basketball? Why don't you do something else with your time instead of it being on your phone?" And it might encourage them to find new opportunities. There's a lot of things to do in Johnson County.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
Just to go off of what everybody else was saying, like back to the original question, I think for early teens, you definitely should limit technology. Like, yeah, just limit the amount they have on social media and keeping up with what they're posting and all of that. But for later teens, like our age, we should be able to manage like ourselves because, as everybody else said, nobody's going to be there to baby us when we go off to college. And what else? There was something that Micah said that I wanted to go off of. Oh yeah, and if you're gonna take away like someone's phone, you shouldn't just take it away and be like, okay, bye. Like you need to give them something else in place of that. So help them find something else that they can find joy in. Like, okay, I've noticed that social media has been taking a toll on your mental health. Why don't we have at-home spa day and we could talk and all of that? Like you need to give them something comforting instead of just taking it away, because I found that causes more problems because now you're like, okay, like what do? I can't talk to friends, like especially since we're in a pandemic. Yeah.
Yeah. So it could be it could be more isolating then. How prevalent is cyberbullying?
I personally don't know anybody who gets
So
cyberbullied.
we'll say I don't see it a lot. I
Yeah,
have heard people have experiences of it. Well, I've heard of some cases of cyberbullying, but it's not that prevalent. Everyone's just kind of talking to each other on social media. If there's an issue, you might get in like an argument with someone on social media, but that's like the extent I see, really. Some people on Snapchat, I don't know, sometimes they get a little bit weird, but other than that, it's really not as prevalent.
So not as prevalent. Was it more prevalent at a younger age? You're all older students.
I personally haven't ever encountered any cyberbullying or any of my friends encountered any cyberbullying. I feel like it's easy to avoid. I feel like it's easy to avoid people that you don't want to talk to. It's like a click of a button, unfollow, unadd, block. It's you don't have to talk to the person if you don't want to talk to the person.
Yeah, I think the ways that movies and TV shows the ways they depict cyberbullying is kind of over exaggerated in my opinion. It's not because if you think about it, someone that posts something online, their name is like directly attached to it. And would somebody with like a decent level of maturity want to do that? So most cyberbullying that people get is from total strangers, and or exactly people we don't know who they are. So it's like, is it really cyberbullying? Because people these days, they just have private accounts and they do things, a little bit more privately than, I don't know. I wasn't really on the internet like 8 years ago when I heard like it was talked about more, but now I think people are being more private on social media.
That's really good news. I'm glad to hear that it's not something that you're seeing, and at least in our area, it's not something that appears to be very prevalent. So that's very good news. So, who do you turn to when you're feeling overwhelmed? We've all been feeling overwhelmed at some point in time during these pandemic times. Who do you turn to, and how do you ask for help?
I wouldn't really go to anybody. I feel like I can handle myself to an extent. Like if there was obviously something like intense going on, yeah, I'd go to a friend or my parents. But I feel like I'll just get away from my problem and go to the gym or something, play video games, and really look at it and see if it's worth being upset about. And if it's not, I'll just let it go and continue to live on.
Snapchat has this feature called private stories. So you have your public story, which all your Snapchat friends can see. And then you can add people to a private story. And what I have is I have a little private story with my closest friends on it, and I rant like basically into the void. And if they want to respond, they can respond. But it helps me to just rant, just straight like on my private story. And I don't know, my friends like to read it.
Good. Amira or Amaje?
I mean, I agree with both. Like, I post stupid stuff on my private story all the time. It's me like crying. I don't know, just stupid stuff. But also, I have a really big problem with asking people for help. So I don't think I'm like the right person to ask this question. So when I like really need help, I'm fine. I can do it myself. And so that's a big problem. So I'll probably just like cry about it and like get over it.
Amira, anything to add?
No, they all covered it.
They've covered it. Great. Okay. We are coming to the end of our time, but before we end, I would like each of you to offer one piece of advice to the audience. We have mostly probably parents. Think about what you would say or what you would want them to know about your world and how they could best connect to the teens in their own world.
Just being understanding. I feel like a lot of parents like to make the comparison like, oh, we didn't have it as easy as you guys do now. You guys all have your phones and this, that, and the third. I feel like just being aware that even though it's different, we still have challenges that need to be talked about, and just having open discussions with your teen.
Yeah, understanding is like a really big thing, but also make an active effort to talk about this stuff and let them know, because there's a lot of parents out there that don't believe in mental health, and a lot of kids are scared to like even talk to their parents about it because they know that they don't. So really make it active, let your kid know that you understand and you believe like this could be something that's affecting them, and that you are an open line for communication for them to talk if you need them to.
Listening is very important, and even asking them about like their future goals and ambitions, and genuinely caring about, what they want to do, and supporting them in any ways that you can.
I would say be willing to help through the tough conversations and being open and yeah.
Drake, what do you mean by helping through the tough conversations?
like when you're going through something like a challenge or going through some adversity, I feel like sometimes it could be hard to open up, and parents should just be able to help be there and be willing to talk about things that are difficult and challenging, and just be positive and supportive.
Thanks.
Okay, if anyone in our audience does have a question, I don't see that we have much on chat. If you would like to type something in, otherwise, thank you so much for being here this evening. And we'll stick around for a minute or two for any questions. Otherwise, again, have a good evening.